Hello. Thank you for that introduction, Rachel. And thank you to Save the Rhino for hosting this event. Thank you also to Samuel Barnett and Hannah Marks for reuniting with me to make that little Dirk Gently film you saw at the start of today's program. This is the minute that if we were in a space together, I would ask you to give them a round of applause. But we'll settle for all the emojis and goodwill that you can send across the internet. And just let me tell you that it was such a special joy to come back together with those two and bring Douglas's remarkable detective back to life. Also, thank you all for being here. By here, I mean, of course, the asynchronous, timeless, spaceless void that is the internet. This is the first Douglas Adams Memorial Lecture to take place wholly online. That's, of course, because of COVID, but Douglas would have liked how we're embracing technology to pay homage to his memory. Today would have been his 69th birthday. And so this is a party, but it's a party with a cause, specifically to support the crucial conservation work of Save the Rhino. And so all of you who have either paid money to see this or are catching it later on the internet and are going to donate are special people. Anyone who 13 months into a global pandemic in which we have all spent far too much time on video calls elects to pay money to get on a video call with us is a special person. And we and the rhinos appreciate that. Now, it is a, words fail, it is a unique honor for me to be here giving this lecture today. And I say that because it is no exaggeration. It is, in fact, nothing other than the literal, factual truth to say that my career as a writer and producer, any successes I've had, and in fact, quite a lot of my happiness, owes everything, started because 25 years ago, I wrote a piece of fan mail to Douglas Adams. Now, that's a big, portentous statement, and you could reasonably expect me to back it up in some way. So I'm going to try. But before I tell you the story of my life as a writer of fan mail, and try and make a case for you to write fan mail too, let me start by showing you somebody else's fan mail. This is Eagle magazine. Some of you may remember it fondly, others may never have heard of it. It was a British children's comic published from 1950 to 1969 and then revived from 82 to 94. It is where Dan Dare, pilot of the future, first appeared, and it spurred the imagination of many young kids in those years. One of those kids was Douglas Adams. And now I'm going to let you experience the young Douglas Adams's first published work, which was a piece of fan mail to this magazine. Because I could never do him justice, the role of 13-year-old Douglas Adams is going to be performed by one of our greatest thespians, Brian Blessed. Here we go.
The sweat was dripping down my face and into my lap, making my clothes very wet and sticky. I sat there, walking, watching. I was trembling violently as I sat looking at the small slot, waiting, ever waiting. My nails dug into my flesh as I clenched my hands. I passed my arm over my hot, wet face, down which sweat was pouring. The suspense was unbearable. I bit my lip in an attempt to stop trembling with a terrible burden of anxiety. Suddenly, the slot opened and in dropped the mail. I grabbed at my eagle and ripped off the wrapping paper. Ah, my ordeal was over for another week.
So, Douglas wrote fan mail too. And therefore, I felt that I was in his tradition. He might appreciate it when, in 1994, as a student, I wrote to him to express my deep love for his novel Gently Solistic Detective Agency and to ask his permission to adapt it for the stage. This is the response I got. Dear Arvind, thank you for your letter. Douglas Adams does not believe that his novel Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency can be adapted for the stage or indeed for any other medium. However, he will not stop you from trying. Yours sincerely, Ed Victor. It is worth it at this point to just take a brief diversion to talk about the magnificent Ed Victor, now also sadly no longer with us, but in his time, the greatest of the mega agents. He was also the most remarkable of men, and also in his way became a mentor to me. Here's how I choose to remember him, in his own words. I've always lived a life where people have said, look at him, who does he think he is? And who I think I am is someone living life to the brim. That's a good a riposte to that question as anyone will ever make, and it's one that I try and live by. In any case, we took Douglas's wonderful, casual, however he will not stop you from trying, as permission, and we went on and staged our version of Dirk Gently. Here's the poster. The blurry detective on the right there is in fact the young Rory Kinnear, and I like to think that this was the role that propelled the rest of his future acting career. In any case, what we weren't expecting was that on the third or fourth night of our little production, the great man himself showed up. Now, if you've never been 18, and if you've never adapted the work of your icon and taken terrible liberties with it, and then he turns up to see it, if you haven't experienced that yourself, then I'm not sure that I'm a good enough writer or speaker to describe for you what that feels like. Let's just say it's pretty disconcerting. I can tell you that he was very nice, and he came out to dinner with us afterwards, and we started a friendship that would last for the rest of his life and help start my career. But in fact, today, I can tell you what he actually thought about our production, because I subsequently, quite recently actually, discovered that he gave an interview in which he spoke about it. Here's what he actually said. There was a student production of Dirk Gently, Holistic Detective, in Oxford 2 or 3 months ago, so I went along to see it. It was funny watching it on stage, because I suddenly began to think about it again and think, well, they did this well, but what they should have done was this, and they should have done that. You know, it starts the whole ball rolling in your head. What was also interesting to me was that whilst I was sitting there being quite critical of the production, I was astonished by how much the audience was enjoying it. It was rather a peculiar sort of situation. I suddenly thought, I would love to see this happen as a film, because I can now see, having thought about it freshly in this context, what kind of movie it could be, and it could be great. So maybe, once the Hitchhiker's movie has got to the stage where I can turn my attention to other things, that's what I'd like to do next. You know what? I'll take that. Okay, he didn't love it. It wasn't that good. I was 18. But what happened that night was Douglas Adams moved from a position of thinking Dirk Gently cannot be adapted for any medium to, oh, I can see the movie in this. I would like to turn my attention to it. I'll take that. Of course, as things worked out, whilst the Hitchhiker's movie did eventually happen, tragically, sadly, by the time it did, Douglas was in no position to turn his attention to anything at all. So it was a source of deep satisfaction, but also considerable bittersweetness, that 20 years later, 20 years after I wrote him that first piece of fan mail, I was able to turn my attention back to Dirk Gently and to do it for him. And let me tell you, if you spend 20 years dreaming about making your favorite book into a series, and then you get to do it, and it's great, I mean, really great, and the whole world loves it, and you make some really close friends making it, and it pays for your house. If you've never done exactly that, once again, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I'm a good enough writer or speaker to tell you quite what that feels like. But let's just say it feels pretty good. As is going on to spend years spinning more adventures for Dirk Gently, who by this stage had become my fictional alter ego in comics and games and every other medium. Seeing the original play get published and performed and translated all over the world. It's a pretty good feeling. In fact, it's occurred to me that my whole career is sort of writing fan mail. Whether it's taking one of the favorite albums of my teenage years and turning it into a Grammy-winning Broadway show, or adapting one of the best novels ever written about the country of my birth and winning an Asian Academy Award with it, or writing a mystery for and about and starring Neil Gaiman, another of my icons and fellow Douglas Adams mentee, or rebooting Oscar Wilde's Portrait of Dorian Gray as a feminist Me Too thriller. Indeed, this very lecture is a type of fan mail. And why not? Because a fan letter is, when you come down to it, a love letter. It's a way of saying to someone, hello, your work, your life, your art have changed me. Thank you. And we live in a world that would benefit from more people reaching out across space and time and writing letters that say, thank you. And it's something I would encourage you all to do. And I promise you, if any of you are so moved to write to me, that's my Twitter handle. I will respond. I always respond to fan mail. So let me say it one more time for the record. Douglas Adams, I'm a fan. Your work changed my life. Your life changed my life. 25 years ago, I wrote you a piece of fan mail, and I've been writing them ever since. Thank you.